Hey everybody, and we are back. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, can't complain.
Can't complain. Can you complain? You know,
I could complain, but
it's been a little bit rough. A little bit rough. For the first time in our history, the first time in American history since like what 19 was Spanish was like 1918, 1920, somewhere around there.
Sounds right.
So we're going through a pandemic in modern times. And I don't know about you guys, it's been a little bit, scary, doubtful, overbearing. It's affected every facet of my life. I'm an essential worker. I'm in the technology space, but in the technology space of being an essential worker. So I have to go in every single day and work. Obviously, he's Dr. Smith, so he has it 10 times worse.
They let me off. I've been off for the last 3 months, so I've just been chilling at home.
Liar.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be a really good idea to do a COVID-19 pandemic, how to stay safe, debunk some rumors type of podcast. And first and foremost, we both do have masks.
Yeah.
Definitely, he has his mask over here.
So when we go outside and are around like other people, like groups of people, we wear these.
Yes, we would wear them now, but then that would defeat the purpose of a podcast because you wouldn't be able to understand us very clearly.
Yeah.
And we're not socially distanced. So, because, friends. So if he has it, I guess I'm going to give it. That's
family. It's family,
it's
right?
Family, right?
Anyways. So one of the things that you notice when anything crazy starts going on in the world is social media starts blowing up, and especially with meme culture, that in the last 10 years, meme culture has become a very big thing, and it's honestly a pretty powerful way of communicating whatever your opinion may be, and it's kind of allows you to relate something back to something you've already experienced, and it kind of helps you see things in a different way. That's how I view memes. What about you?
Yeah. So I think memes have become a way of quick transfer of communication. So I think they're really the new text message.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Well, it's like picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's exactly what memes are. Plus words.
So they're a lot more powerful. We can relay a lot more emotions through memes and everything. So it's very powerful. And social media, as you know, it has become even more powerful in these last 3 months of being a part of the pandemic because we're all, or at least a large majority of people, are more home. We're staying in a lot more. We're utilizing our phones a lot more. So I can only imagine that social media's presence has just skyrocketed. I've even heard a few statistics about certain products and companies that are online based, they've gotten 500% in sales increase.
Yeah, including Amazon.
Yes, including Amazon, because they're hiring a lot more workers.
Right.
So
I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about was all the different perspectives that we can have, and also to make an effort to actually understand the perspective that is different from my own. I'm a doctor in a hospital taking care of sick patients, some of which have had COVID. So I'm obviously going to be pretty biased in my opinion.
Wait, so some of your patients have had COVID?
Yeah. It's okay, I've been tested. No. You remember that text?
Yeah, you did. It was scary. Yeah, he was scared. He was around a patient that had COVID-19. So obviously at that point, you don't know whether you're affected or infected or not.
Well, the problem was at the time, no one knew she was infected. She was sick enough to where we thought she was ill due to other things rather than COVID. And so I went to saw her without PPE, protective gear. And then a week or so later, came to find out that during that whole time that I was seeing her, she likely had COVID because she had a positive test afterwards. And so I sent Enoch a text. I was like, "Hey, I might have COVID."
Yeah, he sent it a few weeks before we did this podcast, and I was like, "Oh, well, that puts an end to us doing another episode of this podcast."
Exactly. But what I did was went to one of the urgent cares that's around here and got both the nasopharyngeal test and an antibody test
Is the nasopharyngeal one the one that goes deep?
Not that deep.
I mean, to me, when I see them do it, it looks like it touches your soul.
It touches brain. Yeah, pretty much. Did it hurt? Not really. Did it feel really weird? Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah. I don't know, it's one of those things that's like, while you're going through it, you're like, well, this is needed, but after you don't really want to do it again.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you got a second test?
Yes. So the second test, though, is a blood test. It's for antibody. I was negative for both, which means that I haven't ever been infected with COVID. It doesn't mean I wasn't exposed. It means I wasn't infected, right? There's a difference. I want to talk about a lot of things today. A lot of things that social media kind of brought up. A lot of opinions, right? I feel like a lot of people put their opinions on social media without really doing thorough research or without doing research that conflicts with their own opinion. If that makes sense, right? So
confirmation bias, right?
Exactly, confirmation bias. I think that if you're one of those people that is like, I don't need to wear a mask, and these are my opinions, and this is like all of the things that back up what I'm saying, talk to someone, possibly me, right? Possibly anyone who's actually working with COVID patients and get their opinion on it too. I'm not saying that you need to change your opinion, but you maybe want to look and widen your perspective a little bit.
Okay, so why do you think someone wouldn't wear a mask? From just coming from your perspective, why do you think people are saying we don't want to wear a mask?
For one thing, people don't like being told what to do. I don't like being told what to do. And frankly, if I don't see a reason for doing something, then I'm a lot less likely to do it, even if I'm told to do it. So I completely understand the people that are like, I'm not going to wear a mask, if they don't really understand why they're doing it.
Masks are pretty uncomfortable.
They're uncomfortable. You can't hear through them.
You can't hear through them. Like I said, my glasses fog up. So we were just doing a test run with the mask on, and like I immediately had fogged up glasses. So you would have not seen my eyes during this podcast.
Right.
So they are uncomfortable. But discomfort versus health, I mean, one definitely outweighs the other.
Right. Well, and there's a few things that I want to talk about when it comes to masks, right? So I've had to wear an N95 mask at work, which is even more uncomfortable than these masks, right? They're pretty heavy on the bridge of your nose, so if you're wearing them for hours, which is what you should be doing if you're in a hospital setting and possibly being exposed to COVID patients, it's going to really eat into the bridge of your nose. My nose is really sore when I took it off. Not to mention that it's hard to get a good breath in one of those. I make a joke that the reason why N95s are effective is because you can't breathe in them, right? You can't breathe, then you can't get COVID. Just saying.
So that's the solution. That's the cure.
The solution is don't breathe.
Don't breathe. Okay.
Exactly. The other thing, I've had friends that are kind of like, I'm not wearing a mask, blah blah blah, and this is why. And when I talk to them, I kind of like, I want to get their perspective on this, and then also explain my perspective, and then maybe we meet somewhere in the middle, maybe we don't. But one of my good friends, he's a little bit older, in his 50s. He was definitely on the side of like, he's an essential worker, and he's like, I'm not wearing a mask. He's like, freedom, all of those things that what he values, which kind of goes over wearing a mask for him. And he also sent me a video of like reasons why, like from a nurse that he saw that was saying this is why you shouldn't be wearing a mask. And so I kind of like went and I was like, well, some of these things make sense, but some of them don't really. So a couple of things. I remember in this video, at least this one specific video that I watched, the nurse was saying that if you're wearing a mask, then you start breathing in your own CO2. You become more acidemic, which basically just means you have more acid in your blood. And that acidemia actually makes you more prone to infections. And in my mind, I'm like, to a degree, you physiologically may be, on the right track. But the thing is, your body automatically compensates. Your body is an amazing thing physiologically. So if you start inhaling your own CO2, your respiratory rate is going to change. it's going to increase and it's going to exhale more CO2 so that you're not getting as acidemic, right? The second thing is your kidneys will start to respond. Your kidneys are a very powerful part of your body. They regulate the amount of electrolytes like sodium, potassium, chloride that are in your body, as well as acid. And so if you're wearing these masks for a long period of time, then your body's going to do what's called buffering and actually make it to where your blood is not as acidic as it otherwise would be. And thirdly, the amount of acidemia that your body would actually go through while wearing one of these masks or a surgical mask is not to the extent that it would really increase your chance of infections. Right?
Okay.
So
you said a lot of things that sounded very smart to me.
Well, you can look it up. You can see whether you agree or not. But that's just my opinion, and I'm biased. So that's one of the things that I'm coming into this telling you that I'm biased. So evaluate what I'm saying from your background and from what you think actually makes sense or not.
So then why? Okay, so why should we wear masks? What's the purpose behind masks? Is it just? I know a lot of people are wearing masks. It's almost a tactic of fear mongering. Like, don't get this. Like, so wear masks. Like, I see people, when you go in the store, I see people, gloves, masks, doing all this stuff, but then they're also touching their cell phone, then touching their face, then touching produce, then touching all this other stuff, then taking off the mask to wipe something off and just putting it back on. And it's like, the purpose of a mask, the purpose of putting on the gloves is to not transfer those germs, bacteria, and all those kind of things. So if you're just like touching all your regular items, then you're going to take that phone that you've been touching the entire time, bring it back home, now take off your gloves, then put your regular hands on it and not sanitize the phone, not sanitize all these kind of things. To me, you just wore the mask for fear-mongering purposes, not to actually protect your own health.
Right. Okay, and so there's a couple ways to go with this. One, an N95 mask is to protect yourself from people that are likely confirmed COVID or at least under suspicion. Regular lay people do not need N95 masks unless you're around a family member that has confirmed COVID and you're taking care of them. That might be appropriate. On the other hand, these masks are more to prevent transmission from yourself to others. You ask, why would I need to prevent transmission from myself if I'm not having symptoms? Well, we don't know really the amount of people in the U.S. that are infected with COVID that may be asymptomatic. The estimates are as high as 80%. It's a really high percentage.
I didn't even know 80%.
It's a really high percentage. And not only that, but there's a subset of people that do not show symptoms after being infected until up to 14 days after infection. That's a lot of time to be asymptomatic and be spreading that virus around.
Going to work, going to the marketplace. You're definitely going to have gone to the store several times.
Yeah, exactly. And you're kind of the mindset of, well, I don't need to wear a mask because I'm not infected. And I'm not afraid of being infected, which is a whole other route, which we will get into. But I want to more effectively answer your question. So when I'm taking care of patients, one of the things that we're taught is to foam in, foam out. And when I say foam, I'm talking about hand sanitizer. So right before I go into the patient's room, I foam in, wash, scrub my hands, and then I put on gloves, right? And then I examine my patient, take the gloves off, foam out, leave the room. And unless you're kind of doing the same mentality during your everyday life, you're really not protecting yourself that much, at least when it comes to wearing gloves. If you're wearing gloves like one set per day, then everything you touch that day is on those gloves. And anything that you touch with your gloves, you spread whatever was on the gloves too, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to do something in particular and you put your gloves on, do it, take them off, and then touch your phone, well, that makes a little bit more sense, right? Because then you're not actually spreading what was on those gloves to your phone.
True.
Not to mention, hand sanitizer is probably just as good. And now I've heard that it's actually in stock again. So
is it? I don't know.
Well, somebody went to the store and found it. So you got to fight for it.
Yeah.
No, don't actually fight for it.
But yeah.
But it has to be between like 60 and 70% alcohol. So don't get something below that. Otherwise, you're just rubbing your hands with water, basically.
Water doesn't kill COVID?
Soap and water might.
See, I'm more of a hand washer, so I was never.
Which is fine. The only thing is, soap and water can dry your hands out a little bit more versus hand sanitizer. It kind of tends to moisturize it while it cleans. So that's why I advocate that. I mean, if I wash my hands every day in soap and water, like with every patient, my hands would be really dry by the end of the day.
But you're probably definitely washing your hands.
Exactly.
Like 15, 20, 30, all day.
Lost count.
So okay, perfect. So with that being said, so it seems like we've come to kind of like, okay, so there's fear, then there's so people are wearing masks to me they're wearing them for a wrong reason because they're super afraid. And then you have people who are not wearing masks for the wrong reason because it's just about my freedom. And so that's the philosophical argument when you start thinking about those things of when is my freedom versus security. Because the more secure you are, the less freedom you have. The more freedom you have, the less secure you are. So
yeah, that's true. I think I would put it in a slightly different way when it comes to fear or not. I don't necessarily think that the people that are wearing masks are necessarily doing it out of fear. They can be.
Well, I said the people who are wearing masks for the wrong reasons.
Sure, yes. What I'm actually more concerned about is a meme regarding this, right? So a lot of people that do not like to wear masks, I just touched my face, don't do that. I'm just kidding. Kind of. Not really. A lot of people that do not support wearing masks, there's a meme going around that's like, we don't abstain from wearing masks because we are selfish. We just don't share your fear. And in my opinion, that's not an informed perspective, right? Because the masks are not for you wholly. They can prevent some infection for you, sure. But they are more for the people that are around you. And so it's not about whether you're afraid of it, right? It's about your consideration for other people. We all have people that are vulnerable to this, that we love, right? I mean, my parents, they're young at heart. They're not that old, but they're getting to that age where, I mean, I'm a little bit wary. And my grandparents are in their 80s, right? I love my grandparents. I don't want anything to happen to them. And so one of the things that you can do, even if you're not even around them, is wearing this mask. Because the problem with not wearing a mask around the people that you're around all day, when in crowds, is you're possibly asymptomatically spreading to them. And then they go to someone else, and they spread it to them. And then they go to someone else. Eventually, someone's going to deliver a package to my grandmother. And she might get exposed to COVID because some person that I don't even know wasn't wearing a mask or wasn't socially distancing. Right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason why we wear masks, the CDC and other health institutes have done studies on this, like not even recently, in like the last 20 to 30 years, right? That reveal a decrease in the amount of transmission. And there is something called like a filtration fraction that kind of measures how effective something is of blocking molecules from getting in and getting out. And the thing is, so you have aerosol, you have particles, right? Aerosols are typically less than like 5 microns. Particles are over 5 microns. It's pretty hard to prevent aerosols with that mask. But particles are fairly, protected by that mask. So COVID is more in the particle range, at least from my understanding. I could be wrong about that, but from what I have seen so far, that seems to be the consensus. And while I say that, I really just need to say there's a lot that we don't know about this virus. It's only been around for 6 months now, and we've had for all of these other things like flu, like a lot of the things that we have vaccines for, we already know a lot about them because we spent a good bit of time studying them. we haven't had enough time to really study this virus to know its patterns, to know what can cure it, right? So there's a lot of false information about that. Plaquenil, right? Azithromycin. Does it help? Maybe. We don't really know. That's the thing. At some point it's like a risk versus benefit because there's risk to every medication. But it's something we're trying, right? Because Plaquenil has in vitro studies. What does in vitro mean?
You're a doctor.
In vitro means you put COVID in a lab, petri dish, and you put some Plaquenil on it, and it seems to be doing a good job of repressing viral activity. What is in vivo?
Again, Dr. Smith.
In vivo is in your body, right? So what is the difference between something
Completely different environment.
Exactly. So just because something works in a lab doesn't mean it's going to work in your body. And I'm not going to really comment on the effectiveness of Plaquenil, frankly, because I don't know. So I'm not going to go one way or another on that. Azithromycin is advocated, at least from my perspective, largely because it has an anti-inflammatory activity as an antibacterial. Okay. The last thing I want to comment on is a lot of people say, I'm not going to wear a mask or I'm not going to social distance because I have an immune system. You want to know my response to that?
Bullshit?
No. That's great, and that might be part of the problem.
Why?
Well, let's think about it. So, have you heard of something called Guillain-Barré syndrome?
I have not, but I'm pretty sure the majority of our audience hasn't either.
Probably not. So, Guillain-Barré syndrome it's a syndrome that happens after you were infected, most of the time by a GI virus or bacteria. And what it does is it allows your body to form antibodies. And so you fight off that infection. But then the problem is those antibodies start fighting your own body. You start going numb. You start losing muscular control. Things like that. Guillain-Barré or Guillain-Barré, depending on I don't know who you are, who taught you, is when your immune system starts fighting your own body, basically. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, things like that. These are malfunctions of the immune system, right? It's when your immune system starts attacking your own body. So when people tell me I have an immune system, so that'll protect me from COVID, I'm like, well, sure. What about all these other things where your immune system are actually doing you harm, right?
Fair.
So, and actually that's one of the biggest things I think that we're really fighting COVID with right now, right? Plaquenil may have antiviral activity, but it also depresses the immune system. Azithromycin is specifically anti-inflammatory in a way that your immune system creates inflammation, right? There are drugs now that are being used that are specifically like IL-6 inhibitors, which is a component of inflammation that your immune system helps to bring about. So when you're telling me you have an immune system and that's going to keep you from getting COVID, I'm going to say, well, you may or may not get infected, but if you get infected and your immune system is overreactive, it's actually not even the virus itself that's necessarily doing the damage to you. It's your own immune system. It is so inflamed, it's attacking everything in an effort to clear that virus from your body. And so you're telling me you have an immune system and say, well, that's good. That protects you from a lot of things. It might do you more harm when you get infected with COVID.
So another question that I would have for that person whose argument is, I have an immune system, are you also a person who, when you get sick, you say, I have an immune system?
Right.
Or do you go rush out and get, a medical brand to take aspirin? Oh, I'm sick, I got a headache. Do you just deal with the headache?
Right.
Or do you actually go get something like that? So if you don't have that kind of mentality for all ailments, then I'm going to be like, that argument is a little bit BS. Because you're just, it is. It is, because
right.
you depend on it from one standpoint, but then you don't depend on your immune system from another one. Now, if you're one of those people like, hey, I'm supernatural, like, I don't believe in that. And again, we can argue, you can debate about, whether that's right or wrong, but at least you're consistent
Yes.
throughout everything.
No, I get that.
I can at least respect it.
Right.
You might not care about other people or do whatever. I mean, it's not about necessarily caring. It is about, like you say, it is that security versus freedom argument. And some people are going to fall, it's the spectrum. People are going to fall on different parts. Like I said, you're saying you wear the mask all the time. I can already admit on this, I have days in work where I don't wear my mask. Because it is very inhibitive. Like I said, a lot of times I'm moving packages, I'm moving boxes, I'm doing a lot of manual labor, and my glasses are fogging up. I can't barely breathe. It's like, you know what? I'm risking it right now. But I will also say, though, on days like that and times like that, because, I do go around other people, I do social distance myself. So during this time, it's been super hard for me just personally because I have been really avoiding my family a lot. Like, so I'm probably closer to Blair right now than I've been closer to my family for a lot of times in these last 3 months because I'm really trying to protect them at the cost of myself because, hey, I'd rather have a bad 3 months of family interaction and be able to have another great 40 years than to have a great 3 months and that be it.
Right.
So,
I gotcha.
I guess this kind of always goes back to just make sure that your reasoning matches your behavior and that you try to see at least both reasonings and both behavioral sides of both because it is, like I said, this is serious. It's something that we've never, have encountered. And even if it's
in our lifetime,
in our lifetime, and I did want to ask you, so about the numbers, because I know that's another argument, is that people are saying that I want to say it's like 200,000 people in America have died from it?
Something like that.
But to ask you about the numbers in the sense of they're saying, okay, but it's only 200,000.
Right. And so here's my response to that to some degree. I'm going to kind of approach this in a few different ways. So, we do not know how many people are infected, right? Mm-hmm. We are getting better tests with sensitivities that we aren't exactly sure about because that requires research in itself. So, we thought that the death rate, or at least in the beginning, I thought that the death rate was probably lower than the flu. At this point, I think it's probably higher. And another issue is it's not just death that we worry about, right? It's permanent, lung dysfunction. It's we do not know the long-term consequences of this illness. We just don't, and that's not something research can tell us. That's something only time will tell us. So if you're telling me you're not afraid of it, I'm just saying, well, what if one day you're able to walk and one day you're not, and it's because of COVID? I'm not. There have been no cases of this that I've seen. I'm just saying, speaking hypothetically. It's great that you're not afraid of it. I'm with you. I don't want to. I don't want to make you afraid, but I do want to make you. I want to encourage you to be responsible.
Yeah, I don't think it's about making people more afraid of it or to minimalize it. I think it's about that there's just so much unknown.
There is unknown.
There's a lot of.
There's unknown. A lot that doctors don't know. There's a lot that these healthcare institutes do not know, and that's not to their fault. We're doing our best to study it, but it's going to take time to know more about this.
And the unknowns come from so cancer obviously is a very usually painful way to die. It's usually your life quality goes down severely. Heart disease, same way. Strokes, same way. But we know about those. There's knowns.
Yeah, exactly.
We might not have perfect cures or be all for those, but we've seen television depictions. It's become so ingrained in our culture. Right. So we know what it is, and we know what you have to go through.
We have an expectation.
Exactly. Even with the flu, 100,000 people died last year, so you have an expectation. So people who still say, "Oh, I don't want to take the vaccine because I'm just going to risk it," they at least know what it's going to kind of look like. There's a known, there's that knowing there. But whereas with this one, it's just we don't know if it was actually a lot less severe than we think or a lot more severe than we think. Right. And hopefully it's a lot less. Hopefully you guys who don't want to wear masks are right. That's the easiest solution. That takes us back to the status quo that we had previously.
Exactly.
But then, since we don't know, there could be this completely other side where now it's actually a lot worse. it doesn't go away in the summertime. People think it's going. We don't know yet. We're just getting into the summertime.
Let's hope. I can't even speculate on that.
But then does it come back in the fall? So then are we worried about this every February and every October?
Right.
We don't know because we've never had an October with having COVID-19.
Right.
And so, people, like I say, it seems like the summertime and things are, on a downwards trend, it seems, for right now. But does it come back up in the wintertime? And does it get worse? Does the strain mutate again? Does it start, we really don't know. And this is the world that I think, we are going to have a new norm because of this.
Probably.
And this is a world, the laissez-faire, meaning kind of live every day like it's your last with recklessness, that's going to need to be tapered off a little bit. Because really, I think COVID has brought a lot of things to light in terms of just not as many cars being on the road. We're having some of our best air quality that we've had in the last decade.
Right. Animals returning.
Animals are returning and stuff like that. So I do want people to realize that a lot of stuff has been human problems. And so we're even with some of the things you're saying, I'm saying a lot of stuff is about our personal versus the collective understanding of what it is. When we think about collective, we're not the only creature that live on this earth. This isn't our earth. This is, it's really not. We're one of billions of organisms,
right.
Trillions probably, that we just haven't discovered. And so we do have an earth that is getting affected by us. Whether you believe in global warming or don't, or things like that, it's getting affected by us. So things are happening. Like I said, you do have more CO2. You have asthma cases are going up. Our lung quality. Asthma cases are going up. You have an entire disease that attacks or virus that attacks the respiratory system. And those people with asthma are more susceptible to it. And we have the highest cases.
Maybe not.
Well, maybe, again, not. But I know with my job personally, anybody who had asthma, they immediately was sent home because the unknowns.
Gotcha.
A respiratory disease, you have a pre-conditioned respiratory problem. So,
right.
Me, I don't have asthma, so they were go out there and work.
Good for you.
Good for me. Great.
Yeah.
But so it does come with a lot of unknowns, and to kind of transition that point from COVID-19 in terms of medical, but transition it to what has happened to our society, what is all the different things we just saw an economy crash because of something biological, not because of greedy banks.
Before we get into the economy, I think there's one more thing we should probably address. What is flattening the curve?
Again, Dr. Smith, I can explain it pretty badly, but
okay, so there's a normal curve, right? It's normal being the statistical version of normal, right? We're going to have infections start, infections peak, infections can go down and eventually stop. Flattening the curve is making that peak a lot lower. Now, why is that? Is that to decrease the death rate? Maybe at some point it could have that effect. That's not the primary reason. Primary reason is so that it doesn't overwhelm ICU capacity, right?
Yeah.
There's something called, it's basically PTSD for healthcare workers. And it's when you have patients that have these devastating illnesses that require ventilators, but you only have so many ventilators to go around. You only have so many resources that we can give these patients because they're just not available. So the actual reason for flattening the curve is so that you do not overwhelm ICU resources, so that everyone who needs a ventilator can have one.
I think that's one of the scarier parts about March and April, because the hospitals were getting slammed.
Right.
Slammed. It got to a point, I knew a guy, he had his first child, and he couldn't go in there to be with the wife, so his child was born, and he can't be in the room with his son. His newborn son came into the world without his father being there, and the father wanted nothing more than to be with his son. So that's kind of sad in itself. But again, it's because everything was slammed. So it's not hospital's fault. It's not his fault. It's just that's the world that we were living in. Yeah. It's the situation. It's just a terrible situation. But then again, like I said, so going back and then transitioning into the economic effects, and
because we don't want to just focus on COVID itself. We want to focus on the other perspective and the effects of COVID on our society.
Exactly. So you're looking at, in April, I want to say the statistic was 20 million people lost their job between March and April. 20 million people, so that's we went and our employment went to 15%. Highest, way higher than 2008. I want to say it's definitely Great Depression era. I don't want to say it was worse than the Great Depression, but it's definitely in that era, which is called the Great Depression. It's not called the Great Happiness. So you can already kind of measure the effects of that, and it's like 20 million people lost their job, like are struggling to pay rent. If not, they've been kicked out. Probably the homeless rate is probably doubled, tripled the amount of people. We do live in a country that at least had to give us, a stimulus check and try to combat things. They tried to put money in it. I could argue that they could have did more, a lot more. They did, in my opinion, the bare minimum. But with that all being said, is that like so many people got devastated by this condition, and there's so much out there. So to all the essential workers, I always want, and we both are essential workers, and I'm gonna say thank you to essential workers, in the time. But I'm also gonna say to everyone who's been affected by it, like that's when you can only see your viewpoint. You don't realize how many people have been affected by it. Like the people who can say it's my freedom probably don't have a loved one that they lost from this. Right. Whereas, 200,000 people have died. Yeah. And when I start seeing basketball players and football players have also gotten this, I'm like, you guys are the best physical specimen that we have in the country. Exactly. And so if you're getting this, and one football player said, he got it, and it wasn't like, there's some people who got it and it ran through their system, it was fine. But one football player said he got it and he had all the conditions. I mean, he lived, but he said it's not fun. He said it was 10 times worse than any type of sickness he's ever had. So like that to me just doesn't sound fun. When a football player says it's pretty bad, I'm good. I don't want to catch it either. So
and that's the thing, is it's not just a lung thing, right? In the hospital, we've seen people that have kidney failure from it, or people that are clotting in their lungs, even if they're on medications that are supposed to prevent them from clotting. So it's a pretty scary thing to deal with.
Not that you should be scared of it, but you should take the precautions of it. I mean, it's just essentially, to make a terrible analogy, it's like driving. Like if you get on the road, you're putting your life, like I said, you're putting your life in someone else's hand. By other people make stupid mistakes all the time on driving.
I do. What do I always say when I'm driving? It's like I'm babysitting.
You're babysitting. Yeah. So it's not just about like your decisions on the road. It's about other people's decisions, and you're trusting that other people are being safe.
Exactly.
And you have to be safe as well. If you're swerving around and stuff like that, you're increasing everybody else's chance of having an accident. And honestly, you swerving around, you might not get in an accident, but because you're swerving around, someone else could hit something else. Exactly. And then it causes this pile up, and then I'm in Atlanta and I'm in traffic for an hour.
And there's a hurricane in Jamaica. Sorry. You get the point, though. Yeah. One person, ripple effect to everyone else.
So it is, and it's like I said, for those people who do believe in that, like, again, just attempt to see another perspective.
Yes.
Because this is, like I said, and this shouldn't be about me just, I lived this way of life that I was living before this, and now I want to go back to living that. It's like, I understand the frustrations. Like, and I do, like, and I live.
We're tired of COVID.
We are. I have a brother who is a teacher. I have a sister who just started high school, and she was super excited, having a great freshman year, and all of that got stopped. You have people who were seniors in college; they didn't get to have a graduation. We had to, and America stepped up, or at least some people in America stepped up to try to make them feel special, like commencement speeches. And some of the celebrities who have stepped up to, like, the basketball players who are paying the employees of the stadium employees, they're paying like their wages because they got all laid off for right now. Right. Even though I would argue that it should be the owners, it should be the billionaires, not the millionaires. Yeah, I agree. But they're stepping up. You have celebrities who are giving meals. I have personal friends who aren't in the best financial circumstances, and they're still finding ways to pack masks, pack food. So while there is this fear, there is also this hope in that humanity, that we are all in this together. There are people who really stepped up and really have tried to make this as manageable as possible. Because this is the unknown. We've never been affected by, at least in my lifetime, since I've been a grown man. Exactly. Yeah. We've never been affected just by something. It just stopped the way we all lived. Right. Like I had 3 vacations planned. 3 between April
I didn't have any, so I'm kind of jealous.
Between April and June, I had 3 vacations planned,
Nice.
and I needed those vacations. I needed them
From that 2 a.m. shift.
Yeah, I'm on a 2 a.m. shift right now as an essential worker, but I needed all 3 of those, and all 3 of those got canceled. I mean, again, it's selfish. Okay, obviously I need to go on vacation, but but it still was my fun. Yeah. But it's like we're all affected by this, right? And we're all sad about it. This is not making anybody happier that we have to, lose a bit of our freedom, that we have to, we can't go. Nobody's happier because of this. The people who are happier because of this are the people who have found, some self-reflection, and they've been able to, because that is the thing. Right. Yeah. Like, I have been able to self-reflect. I feel like I'm a better man just by, sometimes you're moving so fast that you don't realize, the person you're becoming.
Sometimes you get to slow down.
Yeah. So I got to slow down a little bit, and like I said, and I'm a filmmaker. I am. So outside of my essential worker, I'm a filmmaker that, makes products or makes content. And for 3 months, I haven't been able to shoot, film. And even though I could have snuck with my friends and I could have did things. Who's gonna tell me what I can't do in my friend's apartment? I could have packed 10 people in there, not socially distanced, none of us wore masks, and have made something, and probably the government would have been, or the police, nobody would have been any wiser. But I didn't. Because first of all, I didn't want to put any of those 10 people in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to go put other people in jeopardy. Right. I didn't want to, you make those sacrifices, and that's we have to make as a society, those sacrifices. And instead of me trying to film, what I did was I went back and I created more content. Like, I found a way to still do what I love, but in a different way.
That's amazing.
And I feel like that's a solution for everybody. So I know you want to be out. I know you want to be traveling. I know you want to be eating at your favorite restaurant. But there's probably a skill that you probably want to do since you were a teenager, or since you were a younger version of yourself that you never did. I mean, now is the time. Now is the time. Like I said, there are so many great resources that we have because we have things like the internet and social media. Like, don't just spend all day on social media. Like, go learn that skill. If you want to learn how to play guitar, there are plenty of tutorials. If you want to learn to speak if you want to learn to speak another language, there are plenty of tutorials. If you want to learn how to cook different things, there are plenty of tutorials. Yep. Like, Masterclass does not sponsor this, but I use Masterclass, and there's so many different skills you can go through. There's a ton from people who are experts in the arena, and there's so many more. There's Udemy, and there's there's so much stuff out there.
So many ways to better yourself.
And then if you don't want to pay for anything, there's YouTube. Like, I mean,
there's always YouTube.
There's so much that you could be doing right now to just try to better yourself. And you deserve to be trying to better yourself. You deserve to put a little me time into this. Yeah. And family time. If you do have family, like, when are we ever going to get to the point where we get to spend this much amount of time with family who's at home and who's not going out, who's not running and
That's something we need to value.
We should value that. Like, I know former President Barack Obama, like, his daughters are both home from college right now. And he said this is one of his best times because he gets to spend, like, once you go off to college, like, you come back for Christmas and Thanksgiving and sometimes during the summer. But again, during those times, you're trying to see your old friends. You see your family.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're trying to see your friends. And he's like, now it's like they're all in the house, together and able to eat family meals every single day. He said he's cherishing this time because of that. So if you aren't affected by this physically, biologically, you're only affected by it physically in terms of you can't go out. Like, realize the blessings that you have, as opposed to other people, especially if you're not affected by it financially, because we know so many people have. I'm going to say probably a fourth to half of our economy was affected by this financially. So
probably. Well, and I think that's the other part of this that we should talk about. Is the divorce rate has increased.
Yeah, because you didn't realize who you were actually married to until you had to be alone with them for 3 months.
Alcohol withdrawals rates has increased. There's a lot of things that being able to go out and actually, like, be with people that we enjoy, depression, anxiety has increased, right? Some people have jobs that if they aren't able to go to, they can't really be able to take care of their family. And so having 3 to 4 months off of work, that's kind of an impossible situation. So I just want to say that there is this side of, like, social distance, yes, do all this stuff of, like, trying to flatten the curve and prevent COVID transmission. And then there's the other, like, side of it that some people are like really suffering through this. I think it's important to see both sides of that.
And it gets to the point where it's like, as a society, we can argue whether Americans are selfish or not, but if you don't realize how much we always are in this together, like that's really, I mean, a lot of people don't see it that way, but no matter what, we always are in this together. And this is going to be my movie transition portion,
Sounds
because what ends up happening is that, like, until it affects all of us, so many people don't see it as affecting them. So for my movie portion, to kind of bring it back, I'm gonna go World War Z. Brad Pitt, 2013, I want to say.
Amazing movie.
Great movie, and pretty much it's a virus is broken out there causing zombies, pretty much. And Brad Pitt is someone who is out trying to search for a cure for it. And so everybody's banding together at that time because the zombies didn't just affect one group of people over another. It's affecting everybody, and it's an outbreak, and a lot of people are dying. And it shouldn't have to get to that point before we see that we're all in this together. It shouldn't have to be that, 10 million people have to die from COVID-19 this year before we realize that it's a very, severe thing that we should take serious. Because if it gets to that point, then there's going to be calls where the government needs to do more. They need to do this and that. Why didn't we tell anybody? I think another big thing was that, like, in my opinion, how this administrative handled this is that at first they didn't take it serious. And they just like tried to keep everything going as normal instead of taking a few precautions. And I think that worsened the effect. Now, if they would have taken those precautions, something else could have happened. I don't know. But I'm one of those people that, like, take it, at least don't take it lightly. Like, let's, you hear something new is happening, like, hey, let's try to, again, because there's so many unknowns, let's take some precautions. Let's start warning the public. Don't tell the public everything. And I kind of hate when politicians do this anyways. This isn't Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent. Most politicians do this. They tell people misinformation because they don't trust that people can handle it. Which there's definitely some research that does.
There's a point there.
There's a point there.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, I don't know if I ever want to lead a people in terms of being an elected official in which I don't trust those people. Like, that's the thing, is like, I think we've always, especially in America, we just consider Americans dumb. It's like, no, I don't consider us dumb. I think that we are what you portray us to be. Like, if you never give us a chance to trust in the information, then why should we be anything else? Like, maybe if at first we start educating these people on COVID-19, we start doing that in January, which we knew some of the things. We obviously know more now, 5 months later, but we knew some things. If we start trying to educate, okay, hey, that maybe masks, maybe gloves, maybe this and that, like maybe we're going to have to start closing down the airports, guys. But maybe we're going to have to be social distancing. We're going to have to do this stuff. They didn't start like introducing social distancing until late February, maybe early March.
Right.
Masks didn't really start even getting into like, maybe this is a form of combating until like end of March. Gloves and stuff until then. At this point, the America shut down. So it's like, that's an effect. It's like you're being reactive instead of the small things you could have been proactive for. You even give a stimulus bill after people have lost their homes.
Yeah.
Like, you saw where this was going. You knew that things were like, people were discussing that the airports might be shut down, jobs are going to be canceled in January. So like, in my point, that should have been when bills and legislators, like, we need to be like hitting that up right now, because you want to make this as less damaging for people, because that's what it's all about. It's about people. It's about those families.
Taking care of people.
Exactly. Right. So while you might be okay, and I guess this is going to be my viewpoint, you can kind of already tell, you might be okay, but when somebody else is not okay, that means that you still are not okay either, because we are in this together.
Right.
I don't know what your movie reference is, but
not as that one. I just started a show called Containment. Watched the pilot episode. That virus is a lot deadlier than COVID. It had like 100% mortality, at least so far on the first episode. It was like hemorrhagic, basically, and you like cough up blood, goes in their face, and they get it, and they're dead within like 24 hours. It was interesting. And like one of the first things they said was 4 to 6 feet apart. I think it's important in times like these that even if we don't agree on our viewpoints, that we still come together and still try to do what's best for all of us as a people, rather than my sect, your sect. And that's part of like anytime you have like catastrophes happen, like in containment, you have people that are just trying to fend for themselves, and then you also have people that are actually trying to take care of other people. And at the end of the day, I guess you get to decide which one of those people you are. But I know for me, I'm going to strive to be that person that takes care of everyone.
It's probably what drove you to become a doctor in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we had an episode. I think there was an episode about that. You can go back and watch it if you need to.
Exactly.
But yeah, no. So like I said, with this episode, we just wanted to present a few different viewpoints. Hopefully give you guys a few things to talk about. And I guess we've reached our final segment to where we discuss what we learned about each other. I know what I've already learned about you, so if you need some time to think, I can go first.
Okay.
So being around Blair for almost 10 years now is I've always realized he's a smart guy, but like I just realized in this podcast I really realized how smart he was, and that like I think it dawned upon me that you were a doctor here. Like I really do. Like I knew you were a doctor. It's like, oh yeah, he's Dr. Smith. I call you Dr. Smith.
Right.
I made the name of the episode 3 called Paging Dr. Smith. Obviously I had that conscious realization, but I don't know, I think it hit my subconscious just with this conversation. Like you were throwing out terms, explaining, different things, and I was like, wow, you are a doctor. Like it is
That's funny.
It is real, it's official, and I'm really happy that you've been able to take this knowledge and really try to apply it to so many different things. And I know you're having conversations with people all around. I know even just being around your family, I've seen how educated they are, even though your mom's a nurse as well. But I to see how educated your dad is on this situation, how he's trying to help spread awareness and that kind of thing. That's you doing your part.
Right.
Like you affected a few people, and hopefully they affect a few people, and then guess what? Our entire society is affected in a positive way. That at least we're aware of what's going on. So, good job, buddy, and you are a doctor.
Thanks.
You did. I didn't know that before today.
Apparently not. That's good. We normally. I try to keep the medical stuff in.
So you put the mask on for the medical.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. So you always fascinated me with how you like see things, because you always see things in a different way, and you broaden my perspective. I think part of that in this space was talking about the economy and talking about how like bringing people together even in times where we have to be separate, right? And I mean that's something that I like is at the core of both you and me. But it's interesting when we actually talk about it. I don't know. That's kind of what I learned. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I couldn't offer anything on the medical as you could. Like I knew I had to ask you questions. I knew that's what I could bring to the table.
As there are times when I will need to ask you questions.
Exactly. So that's why this friendship works. And like I said, during this entire time, if I had any questions related to anything medically, he was my first text message. So I probably have bothered him quite a bit during this time.
I would say bothered.
I appreciate that. Bothered. But just to try to like help myself and like I said, spread awareness. And I don't know how many people actually have friends who are doctors who are dealing with this. So right. I do have that. So let me try to leverage that resource. And then obviously he's gonna leverage some resource that I can offer later on, like helping make a podcast that we can actually do awareness. This was his idea that we should do one on this. And like I said, it's a great idea. So hopefully, people can watch it, they can learn something from it, and if anything, just broaden their perspective.
Exactly. That's the thing is, we obviously, I'm definitely biased, and I'm not hiding that fact. One of the things that I endeavored to do was explore other perspectives that were not different from mine, but less held than mine, if that makes sense. The other thing that I want to say is I love my program, but none of the things that I'm saying are representative of what my program believes. Okay, this is all coming from me, from my experiences, what I have read, what I have seen, and I hope that you enjoyed it or gained something from it, or it helps you make a choice of how you want to be.
Very fair. Well, thank you guys for listening. I hope you learned something, and I hope you laughed a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. So until next time, guys. See you then.